Okay. Now, what you saw was that here, when we were asking for this user name, and when we typed it in, we saw what we typed. So in many cases, in most cases, this is not a problem. But what if we were to ask the user to input their password? We wouldn't want their clear text password to be exposed in the notebook. We might want to use the password, maybe like use the password, ask for that person's tweets, or log into Gmail with their password. But we don't want to expose it. So one important security measure that we'll do if our input is sensitive or like a secret credential, like a password, is instead of using the built-in input function, we're going to use a function called getpass, like getPassword. It's going to mask this input. And so this getpass function that we're about to use, actually, it doesn't exist in Python's list of built-in functions. Here we don't see anything about getpass here. For the first time, we're going to use a function that comes from a different part of the Python language. It comes from a Python module, which is like a sub-library in Python that we have to just load separately because maybe sometimes not everyone wants to use functions from from every module. So if we want to use a specific function from a specific library, we'll have to just take a step and import that function. But let me talk to you about what I mean here. So first, what we'll know is that this function called getpass comes from a module also called getpass. It makes it a little confusing. The name of this library is getpass, and it provides us with a function called getpass. Let's talk about these imports now. But after we're able to figure out, well, where is this function coming from and import it, now we're able to use this getpass function in the same way that we use the input function. We just give it a prompt, but we see that when we use this getpass function, it will secure and kind of mask. It will just mask the user's inputs. So if you want to do a project later with the Twitter API, you might ask for some secret credentials this way, using the getpass function instead of the input function. And then we see all the values that the user types in are masked. So here's what we mean by this. Now I'm going to create a section at the bottom about modules, because this function is not in Python's standard library. And this is going to give us an opportunity to talk more about modules and libraries and what do we mean by this. So modules. Specifically, let's talk about the getpass module for secure user inputs. For secure masked user inputs. And so the way that we'll do this is like, hey, let's just forget about this import for a sec. Hopefully this code right here is not too bad. It's like what we did with the input function. If this was a secret value, we would probably not print it. So we might use it later. Like we might ask, well, how long is the value? Asking the length of number of characters in this string. So maybe we'll just do that. If we have a password, we'll just ask how many characters it is. So the point here is that this getpass function, you see it's giving us some squiggle. It's like getpass, that's not a function in the Python built-in library. And that's okay. A lot of the functions that we use come from different parts of Python, whether they be built-in modules like getpass or third-party packages like the detoxify package that we took a look at with that package demo that I gave you the other week. So if we just try to invoke the getpass function, it's going to be like, no, where is that function coming from? That doesn't exist in Python. Instead, we have to like go get this function, import it from where it exists. In this case, here's one way of doing that. Here we're saying from the getpass module, which is like a library. From a number of functions available in that library, only import the getpass function. But where's this getpass function coming from? Let's take a quick look at the official docs to the getpass module. So there are a number of modules, and we will use the random module in a few minutes to do random related stuff. If we wanted to do statistical related stuff, we will use the statistics module and some functions from the statistics module. But for in this case, if we want to do secure passwords, we'll use the getpass module. How many functions does it provide? I guess here's the getpass function, and we could provide it with a prompt like we were doing with our input. And I guess maybe there's only one other function provided by this getpass module. It's getUser. I guess it will return the login name of some kind of user. I wonder if this will work in Colab. I'm not sure. I've never used this before. But the point is, when we are aware of a certain library called a module that will provide us with a number of functions that we may want to use, first we'll consult the documentation for those functions. Here we see documentation for a function called getPass and another one called getUser. And so we'll just now need to use these functions in the way that the documentation is specifying. So we could say getPass.getPass. In this case, what we're saying is use this getPass function provided by the getPass module. It's not helpful that they're named the same in this case, but when we use the statistics module, we'll say like statistics.mean, for example. So let's show some examples of this in action. One way we could do this import is like this. From module name, import function name. From module name, import function name. So here we're just using a secure input. You see it's masking the inputs. And we just asked here, we're printing not the password because it would not make sense to go through the trouble of masking the password and then print it later. So here, just verifying something not stored is 27 characters long. All right. So this is a weird way of importing just one function from a given library. But if you like this other way better, you can do this other way, which is like this. Import just the module name. If we import just the module name, now we'll have to prefix the function name with the module name. So we'll have to say getPass.getPass. So we have some options here about how we structure our import. We can import the entire module. If we do, we have to prefix the function with the name of the module. And what we're doing here is we're saying, well, where's this function coming from? Module name dot function name. If we want to try to leverage some brevity, we could either just import the function name by itself, or another alternative way of doing this is sometimes you'll see people do an alias. Import module name as alias name. So we could say import getPass as GP. And if we do that, then we'll have to say gp.getPass, and that will work too. So the point is, when we're using libraries like getPass or like the random module, there's three ways that we can actually import a function from that library. The first is we'll import the entire library or module. If we do it this way, we'll have to prefix the function name with the module name. Second, I'll just share this in Slack as well. This is one way. Another way is using an alias. This is equivalent. And the third way is importing just the function itself. And so these three ways are all equivalent.